Welcome inside the studios here, Osceola, and it is the Seminole Sidelines show after Florida State falls to Wake Forest 31-21. That's Pat Burnham. I'm Ariya Massoudi. We've got a loaded show for you here this evening. Thanks for all of you joining us here live on YouTube. And then, of course, we'll have this available on Apple Pod, Spotify, and all your favorite listening devices as we go throughout the week. All right, Pat, tough. Yeah. 31-21. We haven't had to do one of these shows after a loss quite yet. The reality was Florida State probably wasn't going to go 12-0.
Nope.
And that has become reality. And the Noles got humbled by a mature, a veteran, an experienced, confident Wake Forest.
Yeah, listen, Wake Forest is the best team that Florida State has played to date. Florida State played its worst game of the year so far. And listen, Wake probably had the perfect game plan for Florida State. They ran the ball well for 170-plus yards. They stopped the run, 112 yards. They were 14 of 21, converting third and fourth down opportunities, and held the ball for 34 minutes, which led to 85 plays versus Florida State's 63. And probably more importantly, 0 turnovers, 4 penalties, and they made the field goal that counted. And you take a look at all those other stats on Florida State's side, and it was not a good day for Florida State. But listen, you could take some things out of the second half, as we'll get into. Florida State did play much better, as we've seen under Mike Norvell. This team played with some resolve. They were down several touchdowns. I believe it was 28-7. Came back to make it 28-13, and then deep into the fourth quarter, they had a chance to be first and goal to tie the game. Costly holding penalty took that drive away from them and effectively ended the game. But certainly some things to build off in the second half of going in forward, but certainly it could not have started any worse in the first half, where Wake Forest just dominated the game.
I'll ask you one more question before we bring on our guests for the show here this evening. Pat, were you surprised by, in the trenches, the physicality Wake Forest was able to display? And I don't want to say the lack of that FSU had, but it seemed like Wake was winning those battles down in those trenches.
Well, yeah, listen, I'm not surprised at all that Florida State lost to Wake Forest. We knew Wake Forest was a good team coming in here, one of the best offenses in the nation. What I am surprised about is how Wake Forest went about winning. I did not think they would dominate the line of scrimmage the way they did. They were committed to running the ball. It caused issues for Florida State. They ran it 51 times, which made that passing game more productive. And, of course, that receiving core Wake Forest has, amazing. But, yes, I was surprised at how much, Wake Forest had trouble running the ball coming into the season, had not been that effective at stopping it. And they did both very well. They defended it well and ran it well. And to me, when you have two explosive offenses, limiting chances with the ball was the most important thing. And Wake Forest did that with its run game. It kept the ball away from Florida State and Jordan Travis Wake Forest had the ball 10 more minutes than Florida State did. So not the recipe Florida State needed.
No, so 31-21, that's a general overview of Florida State and Wake Forest. Let's get into how it happened. And to do that, we want to bring on former Seminole greats. We'll start with Mark Salva coming on here and Kez McCorvey as well. Fellas, first off, thanks for being patient and being here with us this afternoon and on this evening. Just told Pat, didn't think we were going to go undefeated on the season. A really good football team humbled Florida State. Mark, we'll start with you on your initial thoughts, and then Kez, right after Mark, give us your thoughts.
Pat, in your description of the game, Wake played winning football and Florida State didn't. I mean, on offense, too many penalties, missed assignments, the execution lacked at times, turnovers. I mean, the best example offensively was Travis's fumble. I mean, Wake went into a front that was perfect for the play that we had called. We had this quarterback counter called, and they had the tackle leverage inside, and it was going to be a big play. But the guard missed the block. The tackle missed the block. Jordan kind of got disrupted. The linebacker came around. He's swinging the ball outside. Ball security was bad. It got popped out, and it's a fumble. What should have been a really big play ended up being a turnover for the other team. Defensively, wow. Just linebackers in conflict, didn't do a good job. We had some scheme issues. Execution on defense wasn't great. The defensive line getting blocked and dominated at times. You know, I mean, DBs in position to make plays, not making plays, not challenging for the ball. And then you throw in the kicking game, you know, missing kicks, penalties on a kickoff, just not winning football. And it's hard to win games when you throw all that in the pot. And then still, like you said, Pat, we had the ball with a chance to tie the game.
Yeah, that to me that was pretty remarkable, and says a lot about Florida State. They can play that bad and still have to me that's what they build off of going into the NC State game and Clemson games, which are the next two games. But Kez, first of all, you look mighty comfortable out on your back porch tonight. Give us your overall thoughts on the game, then we'll kind of do a deep dive into the offense.
Yeah. Thing, I think I want to give just the overall thing. Just it's one thing to be talented. It's one thing to be motivated. It's another thing to have the discipline to do the small things at the right time. It's timing. It's having the ability to wait to pick your shots. It's the ability to be able to do the things over and over again when you don't have a margin. You don't have that much of a margin to make mistakes, right? And so that's what it takes to win big games. Big games, because but when both teams are equally talented and have the equal coaching, it's the ability to be able to, within the moment, to be able to not make those mistakes, to be able to knock a ball down, to have the constitution to be able to, get to the right depth and make those different plays at the right times. And so I think that's what we missed out on, really, because when you watch the game, right, it seemed like we can make plays, they can make plays. They were just consistent in the small details on third downs when they counted to move the sticks, to get us off the field, to in those pressure situations where they made plays. And so I think that's part of it. And then part of that is you too. It's part of that is being in the situation enough times to know to be able to focus at those times too as well. I remember that. I remember being a freshman. I remember just having to be out there and running around and thinking you the best thing to slice bread and not making those plays. And I remember being a senior too as well, and going out there and even knowing how to do those small things and having the constitution to be able to go and make those plays in those pressure moments when it's 4th down and 10 to be able to move those sticks. It's a difference. And so that just tells us where we are as a team and maturity wise.
Yeah, well, let's take a little bit closer look at the offensive performance by Florida State. 393 total yards, 112 rushing yards on 28 attempts, 281 passing yards on 35 attempts. Mark, you and I have talked about this a lot. We've kind of been surprised that Florida State has not been more committed to the run game. Only 15 runs in the first half when you were still in the game. Really, a 2-score game in college football anymore, and pro football too, it's really not that big a deficit. I mean, the way, especially when you're a big play offense like Florida State. Are you surprised that Florida State did not stay committed to the run game any more than they did? Number one, they've been effective in running the ball since Mike has been here. Number two, to keep the ball away from Sam Hartman in that offense. Just your thoughts on the run game, and how surprised were you that Wake Forest dominated the line of scrimmage against Florida State's offensive line?
Well, yeah, I'm a little surprised. They were doing some things to try to affect the running game. I mean, let's give them some credit too. Those safeties were kind of really screaming down in there. What would look like a light box would very quickly become, 6 in the box would very quickly become 8. And so we have good backs that can make people miss. And, honestly, when looking back on it again, we ran the ball okay at times. I mean, like I said, it's the same thing that frustrates me over and over. It's the -2, the -1, and then you crack a big one for 10, 12, 30. It's the consistency in the running game, and it always goes down to what Kez just talked about. It's the details and the execution. It's one guy making a mistake, one missed assignment, or one little thing here that just blows up the running game. And so, as a play caller, sometimes you get frustrated and it becomes difficult. At the same time, you've got to let your guys kind of work it out. And in order to do that, you got to call these runs. Now, the other part of that too is a lot of times we're calling RPOs. We're calling they are actually run calls, but because of the defense, the way it presents itself, it's time to pull the ball and throw the slant, or pull the ball and throw the fade, whatever we have. So, I wish we were better, but we're not, and part of that is a little bit of personnel that we've got to get corrected, either through recruiting or through getting better.
Yeah, well, just stress how inconsistent Florida State was running the ball. They had 4 runs that constituted 66 yards and another 24 that constituted the other 66 running yards. So they really did struggle, and that did surprise me. Florida State was, I thought should have run the ball better. Kez, just your thoughts on the run offense from your perspective.
Well, you know what? I used to play for Detroit Lions, and when I was at Detroit, I played with a running back who was very good. His name was Barry Sanders, and I love playing with Barry too because you would see some of those amazing runs. So Barry would have, maybe 200 yards at the end of the game, but he would probably have 2 80-yard runs, right? But the rest of the game, he got 40 yards on 20 carries, and so the rest of the game, you got 2 runs. You probably got 2 runs where they're touchdowns. You got 14 points, but the rest of the games, I'm on punt team and I'm going out as a gunner, kicking those punts because you're not getting those positive yards. You lose 7, you lose 3, you lose 2, you gain 20, you lose 2, you lose 3, and then those things put you in a position where you can't be consistent. You can't stay on task as your offense because the offense you're thinking about this right. How do I get in the third and short? Or how do I get into a manageable third down situation? Or, and how do I get first downs? And so, I think that was part of the frustration as I was watching the game is can we put ourselves through the running game to make them afraid to do those things to stop us through the run? Do we make them pay? And a lot of times we didn't make them pay. We didn't make them afraid to be able to come up and fill in the run. So, I saw early in the game, I saw a couple of RPOs where we stuck them and, there was a screen to Johnny and then there was the pass to Johnny and a couple other plays that we had some serious yardage RPOs that made them afraid that you would think made them afraid to be able to do that. But we never established it, right? And so you got to establish to where they just, what we're concerned about that. And so we're going to be consistent in what we're doing, which allows us to be more consistent in the run game, be able to get those 4, 5, 6, 7, 8-yard runs to make them predictable. And we never made them predictable. They kind of dictated to us in the run game. I saw a couple of light boxes. Then I saw them, come up. But we got to have an answer. As a coaching staff, you got to have an answer for it. I'm throwing up the fellas up on the bus a little bit. We need to have some answers. And I think they started to have some answers in the second half. But if they got the ball so long in the game, they got the ball 12 and, 12 play drives during the game. They eat up all the clock. By the time we get the ball back, it's too late. We won't get enough tries, opportunities, and that's what Wake Forest does. They eat up the clock. They make you pay. They frustrate you, all that kind of good stuff.
Mark, let me ask you. You and I have talked a little bit about this. Florida State has rediscovered the big play offense. They're ranked 14th in the nation and plays over 10 yards. I think right around that and plays over 20 yards. I ask you after the Louisville game if that big play offense would be enough to sustain Florida State throughout the season. Let me ask you a little bit more specifically. Is that big play offense, based off what we saw against Wake Forest, enough to sustain them against the better teams in the ACC after what we saw on Saturday in Doak Campbell Stadium?
That's a good question, Pat. The deal is this. We're not good enough if we're consistently in third and long. We're just not good enough. And the reason is because really protection, really because of our, ability to give defenses problems. We give them problems, but our offensive line right now is struggling a little bit, and we're struggling, especially on the edges. And so now we're having to keep back center tight ends in the block, and they're not doing a very great job of that either. And so that's giving us problems. So for us to depend on big plays and chunk plays consistently, it's kind of like false hope, to me. We got to. There are times in the game, especially when your defense is struggling, where you have to hold on to the ball, where you have to, take time off the clock, where you have to execute and go down the field. To give your defense a rest, and also just to get some rhythm into the game. And depending on a big play, once every 6 plays, that's I don't think, to me, that's not a great way to execute an offense and score a lot of points.
Yeah, and listen, they could not sustain anything throughout the game. 8 of their 10 drives were less than 3 minutes and 11 seconds, and you got to keep the football away from Sam Hartman in that offense more than that. Kez, get your thoughts on big play offense. Can it sustain Florida State long term?
Yeah, because you know what? Because what that does, that puts you only to a small dimension of the game. That's first down, second down football, right? That's play action football, right? You don't necessarily get that, a lot of that on third downs, right? You're just trying to move the sticks, and so you take away almost a third of the game, your offensive game in that aspect. So that's the problem with that. And I always said that. I think for me that was my concern for this year too. Is can you who's the person that's going to do the majority of the conversions and on third down? That's been my concern period of this offense. We all first down, we've been pretty great. First downs, second downs, our efficiency in there has usually been pretty great until this game right here. But third down conversions, that's when we're struggling. And obviously first down, not doing great on first down, second down, and getting to third down long, they kind of go together, right? And so I don't think you can sustain that type of offense unless you're just that much better than everybody else, right? If you're that much better than everybody else, all right, and then the teams that we're not going to be that much better than are the top tier teams. It's the Wake Forest, it's the North Carolina States, it's the Clemsons, and so you won't be able to play in your strength very long in that type of atmosphere. You're going to have to play with your left hand, right? Is your left hand as good as your right hand? Are you good on third down and long? And so they're going to challenge you to do the things that you're not good at. And so I think obviously we got to get better at that, right? Because that's going to be the bulk of this next season of football that's going to come to us. Is we're going to be in third down and long. Can you convert? Can you move the sticks? Can you execute, not hold, not to make mistakes, not misalign, to where you can convert these detailed contexts like third down and long?
Yeah, it depends on your conversion rate of these things. I mean, you want to take your shots, and I think we took some good shots. That pass to Toafili when we went 5 wides, I think was on first down. I mean, it was there. Jordan hit that pass last couple of weeks, right? And so, yeah, you take your shots, but if you do, now you've got to get back, and you got to get back on schedule. You got to come back and get 6 yards on second down. So take your shot, sure, but you better have a plan for getting into manageable third down situations. I mean, we've been pretty good on third down because that's exactly what we've been able to do in the last 4 games. This game, we took our shot, and then we get a -2 or something like that. Also, or a penalty, right? And all of a sudden, it's 3rd and 13. Well, nobody's good on 3rd and 13 consistently, and so that was the issue last night. And again, it goes back to Kez said it, man. It's funny he said that because I wrote it down in my rewatch of the game. It's the little details, the little things that make the big difference. And when we didn't execute on the little things, things blew up big time.
Yep. Well, listen, FSU, you mentioned conversion percentage, 36% conversion rate on third down. What's fascinating is they averaged 5.6 yards per play on first down. So obviously there was, as you said, Mark, there were some issues on second down and finding positive yardage because their average distance to go on third down was 9.2 yards. So Mark, your quick thoughts on Jordan Travis's performance. I believe he was 23 of 35, if I'm not mistaken, for about 281 yards. Just what are your thoughts on his? 23 of 35, 281, 3 touchdowns.
Yeah, I got the impression, and Kez, correct me if I'm wrong, I get the impression Jordan wasn't really seeing it yesterday. He was kind of staring down his receivers a little bit on a few occasions. I noticed the fumble was a bad fumble. I mean, that ball was out there. That ball was so far away from his body, and he got knocked out pretty easy. I just got the impression he really wasn't seeing it. Now, there were some issues in protection, obviously, and we're putting some tough spots down and distance wise. Wasn't his best game, but he's the best player we have on offense right now. I mean, if he goes, then we go, and that's the bottom line. I mean, he wasn't terrible, but he definitely wasn't great, and he made his share of errors.
Yeah, listen, I think they credited Wake Forest with 12 pressures, but it certainly seemed like he was under a lot more pressure than that. One final question on the offense for both of you. If you're Mike Norvell and that offensive staff, Alex Atkins and the rest of the guys, what are you building off of building off of coming out of this game and knowing that you're going to face the two best defenses you've seen all year the next 2 weeks?
Go ahead, Kez. You go
Well,
hey, I cannot believe that I made either one of you speechless.
I don't know. Hey, asking for a whole week's game plan off this.
No, I said give me something to build off of now. That's what that's all I'm asking
well,
for.
this thing right here, because you got a couple guys that played well. Like on the outside, the skill guys played pretty good. Ford played good. He actually played the fastest I've seen him play this year. I mean, just playing at a certain speed, being aggressive, running fast, being aggressive with the ball in his hands too. I've seen some guys be aggressive, and so you got now a number of people, a number of targets, a number of skill guys that you can spread the ball to. And so now what you've done is you've made it to where you don't have just one guy. You don't have just one guy you got to worry about. You got to worry about 3 or 4 guys that can go out and make plays. Tight ends made plays, X's, Z's, F's made plays. All those guys making plays over there. You got a decent run game. So you're balanced, right? You got some balance. Okay, now you need to work on third down. But first downs, you got some targets and people around the field that you can possibly play. And then you played a lot of people too as well. So I would say that is a benefit. That's a benefit, and then you still have a great quarterback. I wonder if we can possibly have some more quarterback run game involved into our football game. Travis has been a terrific runner with the football in his hand, but he didn't have many runs that were. I think they had one that when he fumbled was a counter play. And I think that was the only run I thought that they had that was specific for him to run the ball. And maybe we might have to be able to utilize that to be able to up the levy on our run game, because that's our strength right now. Our strength is first down. Our strength is run game and play action passes right now. But maybe we put a little bit more apples in that bus basket right there to make sure we stay out of third down and long, okay, to limit our weakness and maximize our strength. And so I think that's definitely a thing that I would look at is to, if you can't fix it, right, minimize the exposure of that situation as much as you possibly can. And so I think they got some really good stuff. There's some concerns on defense for me too as well. It's some like the intensity coming into the game, right? You come into the game and before halftime, guess what? The game felt like it was starting to get over because we let them. We had 8 drives. We had so many drives where we didn't score and we were out, and then they had the ball and they kind of wore on us after a while, and it felt like we started a little bit slow. And so that would be my thought process for the coaches coming into the game. Hey, we got good offense guys, right? We got some stuff that we can be successful at, or we can build upon that. Can we minimize the weaknesses and can we maximize the strength right here? And then defensively, right? Just getting some of those young guys and get some of our guys that are hurt back. That's one way you can solve some of the issues is get some of those hurt guys, all right, back on the field so they can go out and affect the game. So that would be my thought.
Yeah. Look, to your point on Jordan, Ari and I were having this discussion before the show started. I think some of the reason they're not running him is because of the injury suffered against Louisville. He has not he has this explosion to him, Ari, and we have not seen that the last 2 games. So I do think that as he gets healthier, I do think we'll see him more involved in the run game, particularly with the big games coming up. But Kez, we didn't have you on the show last week, and this is a question I had for you last week. One of the positives of this season, and even it was a positive yesterday, you talked about the receiving core. They're deep compared to a lot deeper than they were last year. What have you seen? We all know about the transfer guys, but what have you seen out of Malik McLean and Pookie and Kentron that's helped this team be more explosive on offense?
Well, you know what? I think a benefit is this right here is having enough guys to where you can throw enough bodies at a defense, right? That's such a thing as fatigue. That's such a thing as being tired. And so when you got guys that you can switch in and out, that are quality guys that you trust, that can go in the game, that you can put out there to run somebody else's legs off, that's a benefit that you can trust, right? Because that eventually that wears people down too. So I think that's a benefit of having guys that you feel like you can trust, that go out and make plays, that that can get experience. That by the end of the season, guess what? You got a good number of guys that have experience and gotten that scared thing off of them to where you can put in the game. So I think, but also I think what it does too is right here, it limits teams' ability to be able to double team certain guys, right? if you got guys that are confident out there that can make plays, that you feel like they can make plays, it allows Travis to not think, because quarterbacks go to their favorite guy. I've been a quarterback's favorite guy. I can say that. I have been a quarterback favorite guy.
This is number 17.
At least that's what he tells. That's what he tells me anyway. He tells me that. But and so I know what it's not like to be double teamed, right? But when you got other guys around them, guys on the other side that you can throw the ball to and not blink and not have to think about it, that makes a difference for an offense. And so I think that's what we have.
All right, we're going to head to a commercial break, and we'll be right back in 30 seconds, and we're going to hear from our sponsor, Alumni Hall.
Alumni Hall, where you'll find officially licensed FSU gear for the entire family, including brands like Nike and Champion, plus great gifts for your favorite Seminole and home decor too. Miss some of the old Seminole throwback logos? Check out our College Vault collection. Shop online at alumnihall.com and let our great customer sales team ship to you within days, or pick up in store in Tallahassee. You'll find us in the Miracle Plaza Shopping Center on Thomasville Road. Students and military get 10% off in store. Alumni
You can ask me
Hall.
what you want.
Welcome back here inside and on Seminole Sidelines. We've got Kez McCorvey and Mark Salva, Pat Burnham, Ariya Massoudi, and Florida State losing 31-21 to Wake Forest. All right, we talked a lot about offense. We talked about Jordan Travis. Let's move on to the defensive side of the ball. The Noles made some adjustments there in the second half, fellas, but they really couldn't stop Wake Forest, and they couldn't keep them out of third and short. Really, fourth downs were very manageable for the Deacons all afternoon. And Sam Hartman picked apart Florida State's secondary. A lot of 1v1s, it seemed like, that Wake Forest's receivers won. When you guys went back and looked at the tape, Mark, we'll start with you. What did you see?
Yeah, so here's the gist of what happened. They really put our linebackers in conflict. All right, so the game plan was to play two deep man under majority of the game, and that's what we did. And so it mixed in a little bear front with that. That's neither here nor there. Well, here's the deal. A lot of those third down conversions, they would go three receivers on one side, one receiver on the other side with the back and shotgun to that side, right? And so the linebacker to that side has the back. The corner on that side has the receiver on the single receiver side. And all they were doing was they ran a flare with the back, and they would take the receiver and run them on either an in or a slant. And then once they ran a takeoff, right? And so what happens is that linebacker scoots out of there to cover the back, and that middle of the field is wide open. But the corners were not taking away the inside leverage. They were letting them inside way too easy. And so a lot of those third down conversions, fourth down conversions, a lot of those chunk plays came from that exactly, right? And so there was one time, and I think you remember this play, there was one time when I think it was Kalen turned around and he went to play the in route. The back flared, he went to play the in route, and Hartman saw it right away, threw it to the back, and the back scooted down the sideline for 20 yards, right? So again, our linebackers in conflict. The other thing with that slow mesh put our linebackers in conflict. The thing that our linebackers were doing so well leading up to this point was that they were very decisive, right? They were moving at the snap of the ball. They knew where they wanted to go. But this slow mesh thing really played with their minds. They were standing still. They were static. And they were getting caught up in a lot of trash in the line of scrimmage. And then the back would just scoot out the other side, and they get clipped by a lineman somewhere. You know, that was the gist of a lot of their runs. And so, but here's the thing. We didn't give them any problems. We didn't come out of that for 3.5 quarters. That's what we played, right? Only until that last drive did we start to take one of those half safeties and drop them down, right? And that was when Hartman, you got to give him credit. He saw it right away. We dropped that safety down, kept the linebacker inside, and so now Hartman took his eyes away from that weak side, the one receiver side, and went to that three receiver side where they were bunched. And then they started in that last drive. You saw they got some, but that was when that Greedy Vance was right there, right? That was the play where Greedy Vance was right there. We had dropped the safety down. Hartman went to the three receiver side, and Greedy Vance was right there. He makes the picks, and that could have been a pick six. That's the ball game, right? And so, you know, that what was happening scheme wise, right? The other part of it was that our defensive line was just getting blocked until Jared Verse got in the game, right, and started to really affect the game. We were getting blocked. Patrick Haig made some plays. He did okay, But I mean, McClendon didn't do much. Briggs didn't do much, and the inside guys were just, man, you know, if you're going to get blocked, at least take up 2 or 3 blockers and let the linebackers be able to run around, right? But that wasn't happening either. Now, all that to say this, we held them to 28 points, you know, or 31 points. It was 28, 21 at one point, but you know, we were in the game, and it came out. So to Kez's point earlier, we didn't come out with our hair on fire, right? We didn't come out with a sense of urgency that we had to get off blocks and play hard, because I just didn't see it until that second half. They started playing with a little more sense of urgency, and so these are all correctable things. These are all things that can be corrected. And honestly, you know, again, I hate calling people out, but I mean, the scheme, I think, just there could have been some tweaks to it. And if the corners just take inside leverage, if the linebackers just become a little more decisive, if the defensive line just takes up blocks or at least get off blocks, it could have been a different result. But that to me was what happened on defense.
All right, Mark, let me ask you this. I understand kind of why they slow played coming off the edges, you know, the 2 defensive ends. But you and I talked about it a little bit coming in. When you're playing that kind of modified heavy technique that they're playing, doesn't it kind of play into the hands of what Wake Forest wanted them to do? You know, kind of.
You got to make a choice, you know, how you're going to play. If somebody's playing slow, somebody else has got to play fast. The problem was nobody was playing fast, right? I mean, that was the problem. If you want to scream your defensive ends down, that means your linebackers got to be their cover. Or if the defensive ends are going to slow, then the linebackers got to play fast, or the safety's got to come down and play fast. Okay, so they complement each other. The problem was nobody was playing fast, and that was the issue to me.
Yeah, I would agree, Mark. I just think you know, you got that's their game. They play like that all the time. And if you allow them to be comfortable and do what they've always done, they're going to be successful at it, right? And so I don't think we ever took them out of their comfort zone. They are used to that. They're used to guys sitting at the line of scrimmage and waiting. And I'm not trying to knock the scheme of how we decided to go about doing it, but they're comfortable. He was comfortable. Tim was comfortable. I mean, that mesh was 5 yards deep, right? And he sit there for like 5 seconds, seemed like, to hold that ball and then throw it. I have never seen a quarterback drop. That's like 4 yards doing 4 yards in the line of scrimmage, and you'd be okay. Usually you get mauled, right? Usually you get so much push up front to where you can't sit there. That's why people take 5 and 7 step drops to get some depth so they can get that ball off. But for some reason, they are able to do that and him be right in the middle of all those bodies right there and have a clean pocket to throw the ball. And so I just don't think we ever made them uncomfortable on offense to where they felt, until Jared got in the game and he started making some pressure. He started doing some inside rushes. He started rushing inside and taking some inside rushes, which made him uncomfortable. And so,
you know what, Kez, I wrote this down, and you pretty much said it. They did what they did better than we do what we do.
Yeah,
and that's basically what it was.
Without a doubt. And I mean, Kez, the wide receiving core for Wake Forest, one of the better units FSU is going to face all year. A.T. Perry is phenomenal at what he does. He's been there a couple of years. Him and Hartman have great chemistry, but they had 300 or 400 guys that were winning 1v1s. They were running route trees that were based off that mesh, but they were giving FSU problems, and it seemed like every single time they needed to have a first down, the receivers knew exactly where to be, right to the sticks, and they kept the chains moving.
Yeah, they had some good schemes. I mean, a couple of those third down and short, they had some schemes where they had, like we call them dodge routes, right? Where you have people run off and they're in a bunch alignment, right? They run off and then you have one guy that waits behind and finds the open space and he gets open, and it's hard for the DB to run to those bodies to get to that guy. They had a couple of those plays that were really good, and then they were able to make people miss to get those first downs. We didn't do a good job tackling. I know what they were thinking. Okay, let them catch the ball. We'll come up and tackle you, get off the field. And a couple of times they catch the ball and they were able to get within a yard or even get the first down, and then we didn't do it. So it was a couple of those different plays that were able to be made. And then a lot of those plays, we were right there. The read advance play, we were right there. The one on the sideline, the touchdown in the end zone.
Renardo Green was right there, wasn't he?
We were right there. The pass interference right there, man. Not even reason to be pass interference. It's not like the guy had a great move or something. We made him fall. No, he just ran up and he went to the fade route, stick with him, get him phase, body him out, and turn the ball. So a couple of those things, we were right there in position. but we just didn't make the play. We just didn't make the play. And this, I mean, obviously you got to get better. It's confidence and everything like that. But, our guys have to learn how to make those plays. When you get confidence enough, when you're confident enough, you will make those plays when you're confident. All right. And so I think that's kind of where we have to continue to work on is getting confident. And that only comes through going against the guys that you got in practice and building that confidence in practice. So I was, obviously I'm like Mark. I was, I watched the game and I saw the energy level and it didn't seem like we were on fire. And for those guys, you got to be on fire. You got to be able to change the rhythm of how they play offense and not let them play in their strength. And I don't know if we did that initially. Now, second half, it seemed like we coming on a little bit to produce that energy. But by that time, after they've had the ball forever, it's probably too late. It's about too late.
Well, listen, probably the most alarming stat and what led to a lot of the issues for Florida State was third and fourth down defense. Wake Forest was 14-21 on third and fourth down conversion. Sam Hartman was 7 of 7 for 78 yards, third down passing. That led to holding the ball for 34 minutes and 85 plays. Mark, what did you see? And Mark, a question for both of you. What did you guys see on FSU's third down defense that was not getting it done for Florida State?
Well, I think we pretty much just talked about it. I mean, we were playing a lot of man coverage. They ran those dodge routes. When they were 2-by-2, they'd run those dodge routes. When they were 3-by-1, they'd run the slant with the flare. And they were needing 6-8 yards, and they were getting it every time. Once or twice they throw a run in there, and actually got it on a run. So again, they executed at a very high level versus what we were doing, and we didn't give them a lot of problems. We didn't pressure them enough. Look, we said the key to the game was to make Sam Hartman uncomfortable, and he was not uncomfortable. Heck, he could have smoked a cigar and had a bourbon.
You're trying to make him Joe Burrow.
Yeah.
Seemed like in that third quarter, especially after their first touchdown drive, Florida State, you mentioned bringing in the extra help from the outside. And the Noles were able to slow Wake Forest down. I think it was a tag team effort, right? The offense was putting some drives together, keeping Wake off the field, and the defense was getting Wake off the field due to the pressure. Verse getting up the middle, and of course, Shaheem Brown doing a nice job as well. What did Wake do adjustment-wise in that fourth quarter? Because I do think we need to talk about their final drive, which kind of put the game away. It was a grown man's drive. 18 plays. They converted like 6 or 7 third and fourth downs. They had a mossing over a Greedy Vance on 3rd and 9 that essentially I thought at the moment ended the game because you knew Wake was going to get the 3 points that they needed to get up 2 scores. What did you guys see from the Deacons and the composure they had and the adjustments they made on that final drive to win the game?
Yeah, I charted that drive. 28-21. They converted. Yeah, the Greedy Vance, they converted on 3rd down, 4th and 3. That 3-by-1 cluster, they converted on that, and then on 3rd down it was the touchdown run, and it was a mix of things. We had several situations where we could have gotten out of the drive and didn't make the play.
Yeah.
And that was the bottom line. They ended up making the play. They did what they had to do, and they were able to adjust to our pressure. Because you're right, there was a spell there where we were really getting out, and we sacked them 2 times in a row. We were really starting to affect them, and I was starting to sit up in my chair a little bit. Said, okay, tide's turning here a little bit, right? And then they got the ball back for that drive, and they were just able to execute and do what they needed to do. And we actually tried to change some things around, but like I said, we did change some things, and Hartman is too smart for that, man. He saw it and he went, but there was an opportunity to get off the field, and we didn't take it.
Yeah, Kez, when back in your day playing with some of the greats and Charlie Ward, you guys had drives like that where it was time to put somebody away, and it was very, very measured. You knew exactly where you needed to be at all times, calm, cool, collected. What did you see from Hartman? What did you see from Wake Forest on that final drive?
You can tell he's mature. You can tell he's worked with those guys before. You can tell he had faith too as well. Because I'll tell you the truth, when I hate to even do this. But when I was there at Florida State, I knew I had worked with Charlie Ward so many hours, so many times, so many days that where I knew if it's a fourth quarter last drive, I knew that we would come up with a drive because we've done it so many times, right? When you've done it so many times and you're on the same page with the guy, you trust him, you know that he can do it, and you just go out and do it, right? And so I think Sam Hartman and the Wake Forest Dean and Deacons have that same type of trust. They've been doing it for a while, right? They're good football players. They're a good football team. I can't sit here and try to knock them out. I want to say that the Deacons when I played, but they're those guys are pretty good, and they were pretty good at what they do. I mean, I watched that last drive, and I was like, wow, these guys believe. When I saw number 13 take that ball from Greedy Vance over the top, I said, this guy here, he wants it. He is refusing in a competitive way to lose this game. And so they were always on the attack. Sam Hartman found the open guy. He found the back swinging out to the right over there to run up the sideline with nobody guarding him. That was easy for him right there. But then he found the other guys too as well. And the coaches had plays that are already, for that moment that I hadn't seen before. I saw that bunch, that 3-by-1 bunch play over there with a guy caught underneath right there. And I thought, okay, sit at the sticks, guys. But they had a great play to where they could shield that guy and allow him to catch the ball and then make somebody miss and get a first down. My goodness, And so those guys were veterans. Those guys trusted each other. All right, they played at their own rhythm. All right, and they had confidence that they could do it. And so that's what we're fighting for right now. We have talent. We have the ability. We have some good coaches too as well. Right now, our confidence isn't at the level of Wake Forest confidence. I'm not saying we don't have confidence, but it wasn't at the level of Wake Forest confidence to win that game.
It's a process. It's a process.
It really is.
And we're in the middle of the process. I mean, we got to learn to walk before we can run. And we're in a situation where everybody's telling us how good we are. We got ranked. We're 4-0. This is uncharted territory for these guys, right? And now they got faced a little adversity. They fought through it. But the good news is, you asked me before, Pat, what can Nole take out of this? They can go watch that film, look how bad they played, and say, guys, we win this game if we take care of the little things. We make these plays, we win the game. And that's what you can take out of it.
Yeah, well, and I was going to ask you that question, so thank you for going ahead and addressing it. But listen, Ariya mentioned it earlier when we were talking. This is a climb. This is not a leap. They are climbing. They are moving in the right direction. They are, they're improved football team. They're improved talent wise, but they are climbing, Ariya. And I think that listen, take a lot away from this game, but this is a team that is not gonna. We didn't think was gonna compete for the ACC championship. They played a good team. Wake Forest, 39 players in their third year or fourth year in the program, coming off ACC Atlantic Division championship last year, 11 wins under its belt. So yes, the climb is not going to happen as fast as most people like it.
Yeah, I mean, it's still a climb, right? If this team finishes with 7 regular season wins and gets an 8th in a bowl game, or wins 8 regular season games and gets its 9th in a bowl game, how could you not be pleased with where this program is going? I think a lot of people got greedy after a 4-0 start, and the truth was, you beat a good LSU team that you played in their first week of the season. You had already had a game under your belt. You played 2 pretty bad teams in Louisville and Boston College. They showed that they were in a slugfest of their own, and it wasn't pretty football in Chestnut Hill early Saturday morning. And you beat a Duquesne team that you should show up and beat. So Wake's really the first good football team you played multiple games into the year. They've had a chance to game plan. You watch what's on film, and I think you got humbled a little bit. That's not to say that your goals aren't in front of you, but people were yelling, we're back, and FSU's players are yelling, we're back. And it was like, guys, back, what does back mean?
Back is relative, right?
Right, relative to what? 13-0, 14-0? That's not the type of back that you are. But are you back to being maybe in the top 25, maybe being talked about again on College game day, and they're not laughing at you? Yeah, I think you're back to people respecting you a little bit. And you know what? You were there against Wake. I like what Mark said about you played pretty bad, and you still were down 1 possession, right, at the end of the game, with the chance, if you make a stop, to have the opportunity to tie. And so that says a lot about the growth. But I guess I want to ask all of you guys this. Pat, we'll start with you and kind of go around the horn, so to speak, to Mark and then Kez. The injuries are really mounting up for Florida State. Like they're rearing its ugly head. If you had told me going into the year you'd be 4-1 after 5 games and you didn't have either of your projected starting tackles playing. Caden Lyles, who some had projected to be a starter.
Right.
On defense, Lovett's out.
Yep.
Versus not, he's limited and not 100%, giving you what he got. Would you have taken that 4-1?
Oh, I think that if you'd ask anybody on this show, anybody that's behind the camera on this show, anybody in Tallahassee, if they said 4-1, would you take it right now? I think we would. I certainly would. 4-1 is an excellent start to the season. There's still a lot of football left to play. Certainly, they have to get some of the issues that we discovered against Wake Forest out of the way with NC State, Clemson, Miami. Syracuse is much better than what we thought they were going to be. They've got to get some of this cleaned up, but absolutely, there's a lot of winnable games in front of Florida State. So, yes, 4-1, I'd take it. I do have a question. I want to tag this, though, Ariya. You and I got into a discussion about polls last week. LSU has the same record as Florida State and is ranked in one of the polls, but that we can just kind of talk about that a little bit later. But anyway, fascinating. But yes, I agree with you.
Mark, to you.
Yeah. So, here's the deal. And I want to be clear. I'm not down on this team. I'm not. I'm proud of the way they came back and they fought back and were within a possession. It wasn't their best effort, but they were, they fought and proud of that. Here's the thing. Everything that we could hope for is still in front of us. We've got one conference loss to a team that's got one loss. Right? We play NC State, we play Clemson, we play Syracuse, in daunting tests. But, and I said this last night, if we play our best, we can beat those teams. If we play our best, right? The injuries are a problem. Let's face it, we have an offensive tackle problem. We do, and that's got to somehow that's got to get cleaned up. Either find a way to protect them, or they got to get better really fast, or else, we're gonna struggle there, especially in the next 2 weeks, right? Defensive line, we're really into our depth on the defensive line. Hey, back in the day, we would rotate 8 guys. We would go in and we'd be in and out, right? And so, we're into our depth. Those guys are having to play a lot of snaps. So, for me, it's I'm like I said, I'm not down on this team. But it's all in front of us. But man, we need to come out with our hair on fire. And now we know what it takes to win an upper echelon game in this league with these good teams. You got to play 100 miles an hour. You got to play with your hair on fire, and you got to execute at a very high level. And nothing short of that is going to get it done. And hopefully they understand that now.
Kez?
Yeah. I would say this right here. I'm with you, Mark. I'm not down on this team either. I think, sometimes failure can be successful. And when I say that, I mean this right here. I mean, sometimes you can utilize these events right here. Now, most of the time, guess what? You want to be able to have some failure happen, but still get the W, right? But sometimes you get the W, and you have to deal with that too as well. But I think some of these things right here can be corrected. A lot of these things can be corrected, right? It's not a situation where it's talent-wise. It's a situation where now maybe get this guy here to listen a little more closer, more intent, because now he sees that this thing, that the mistake that you might be making can affect the entire game. And so I am a Mike Norvell guy. I love Mike. I love his energy. I love how he cares for the guys on the team right here. I believe that Mike can take this right here and get this put in front of the guys' face, and then have them stand up. And stand up to the call, right? Hey guys, this is what we want. Is this what we want to be at? No. All right, what do we want to be? We want to be here, okay? These are the steps to get here right here. And then so these things we did in the game right here, we need to correct them so we can now get better. So it could be a stepping stone for us to become great. Or it could be, more what's to come too. And I hope it's not more what's to come. And I believe it's a stepping stone to be corrected, to be stamped out of the program, to be able to build them up into the program they can become. So it's because, I think, Wake Forest is a really good football team, right? Any team in the country is going to have a problem with Wake Forest. And for us to come in there under the duress they put on us and still perform, to still have the constitution to be able to go out there and continue to play and fight back and then make the corrections in the game to put ourselves in a position to win, that speaks a lot about us, right? So we can't just take every W is not the same. All right, every win is not the same too as well. They count differently. They count not on the scoreboard, but they count in the heart of the guys that are playing. And so, to me, when I look at this game right here, this can be a stepping stone for us to come back next week against the NC State with a little bit more confidence, but also a little bit more discipline too, to be able to come back and possibly be in that game and be in the Clemson game as well.
Absolutely. Mark, we've got a fan question. I want to shout out Joe James, and it's an O-line question, and he wants to know, was Wake holding on every single one of their plays on offense? He says it's not possible to block the way that they do without holding for 5 to 10 seconds at a time. I saw a couple holdings. What were your thoughts?
They don't call it ain't holding, unfortunately.
No,
Yeah.
I'll say this. Holding happens on every play and every game on every Saturday.
That's right. I mean, look, again, we talked about this leading up to the game, and I was talking to Kez about it. That play is like an old play we used to run back in the day, like especially with Ampley and all that. And it's the sprint draw play, and the technique for the offensive lineman is really singular to this type of blocking, and it lends itself to being able to stay on guys a long time because of the slow action. When guys try to separate is when it holds. Now, I agree with them. I mean, 62, I thought got away with a few holdings, but at the same time, our guys got to try to get off blocks and accentuate that too. And that wasn't happening either. So, they obviously weren't going to call it. And I wish we would have held a little bit more. Well, actually, I don't, because we got it called, right?
They called us plenty.
They did.
I promise you, they called it plenty of times.
That's
That was
true.
How about that little dump off at the end, fourth quarter, and call a holding? The ball, I think that would have been inside the 5, right?
Yeah, inside
and the holding
5-yard
moves it
line.
back, end up having a 4th and 19 that you have to punt from. That was brutal.
Yeah. We got the ball inside the 50, right? And so, but that was obvious, right? The guy was running away. And we're holding on. When the guy's trying to separate and you're holding on, and your hands are outside the numbers, they're going to call it. They did a great job of staying disciplined. The hands were inside. Right. And if our guys were trying to separate and get away, then they might have called it, but we weren't getting that. So they wouldn't call it.
Mark, I do want to ask you this question. All right. So I don't think most people realize this, but maybe they do. But if a player was to come over to the sideline, either in practice or a game, and complain about being held, what is this coach going to tell him?
You're out of the game. Give me somebody else.
Yeah, get off the block, right?
Yeah.
It's your job to get off the block. Yeah. So
Don't tell me how rocky the sea is just bringing the ship.
Oh, that's John Eason right there, buddy. There's little John Eason. Hey, I'm gonna say one other thing too. Just about this offensive plays too as well is the number of plays that don't go as prescribed, right? And I think we still have to work on getting to where we don't have as many scramble plays or the plays that don't go in the right hole, or where you have to bounce it and where the play works like it's drawn up, right? And so I look at some of the passing plays too as well, when the ball comes out on rhythm, right? If it's 3-step or if it's 5-step, it's coming out on rhythm, right? And you go through the process and it works like that's drawn up, right? And so if you have too many of those scramble plays right there, it's kind of like we talk about big plays, right? You have too many of those things, nothing but bad can happen, right? Nothing but bad can happen. But if you get the ball out on rhythm and it's coming out the way it needs to come out, it goes to the person it needs to go to, it's hitting the right place, you complete the ball. That's when you've got some really good football, right? And that's when you can depend on it. It's like, it's like getting those dependable investments, right? That they're not going to be $1 gazillion, but they're going to be dependable income coming in. And that's the same thing too. We got to find out dependable plays that we can depend on. What are some of those plays that, regardless of whatever they do, we can execute at a high level? And so that's what I'm looking for when I'm looking for our team. On first down, what are our dependable plays? Runs, passes. Okay, on third down and whatever, long or short or whatever that might be, what are our dependable plays that we can run and we can execute at a high level? And so that's what I'm looking for as far as our team to be able to do in the future.
Cool. Let's get one more shout out. Mike Myrick says, "What's up, fellas? Go Noles." Thank you, Mike, for watching us live here on YouTube. We do need to take one more break. I think on the other side of this commercial, we'll chat about NC State because, as you guys both said, Mark and Kez, what is coming up for Florida State? Let's talk about the Wolfpack after a message from the Florida State ticket office.
Hey, Seminole fans. Tickets to Florida State football games are now on sale. Right now, you can pick up single game tickets, pre-game packs, and season tickets for the 2022 season. Home games include Florida, Clemson, Georgia Tech, Wake Forest, Boston College, Louisiana, and Duquesne. Have fun this football season with your friends and family, all the while knowing your ticket purchase is funding excess. Call your ticket rep today at 850-644-1830. Visit Seminoles.com. That's Seminoles.com.
All right, welcome back, and thank you to the Seminole Ticket Office. What a great crowd, by the way.
Yeah.
On Saturday, nearly 70,000 after Hurricane Ian comes through the state of Florida. Our thoughts and prayers are with you guys down, especially in Southwest Florida. And 4 free tickets given by the FSU Athletic Department to anybody with a Florida ID to try and just put a smile on some people's faces. I had some buddies come up from the Fort Myers area, and that was cool to see them enjoying a Seminole game. They made out okay. I know a lot of people over there, especially Sanibel Island and those areas. Again, we are with you guys. Our thoughts are with you. But it was a great day for Florida State to kind of celebrate football. Yep. They didn't get the result that they wanted, but it was a great atmosphere. Students sold out of their 17,000.
Yeah, students are fired up about Florida State football. Yeah. The fan base is fired up. To your point, Ariya, that storm affected a large majority of the state. Obviously, devastating to Lee and Charlotte counties, and our prayers are out to those people in those areas. Obviously, a lot of Florida State people down there. I can think of James Chaney in particular, former Florida State player. There's a lot of guys. Robbie Baker lives down there, former Florida State center. Obviously, a lot of graduates, but also affected the eastern part of the state. So I do believe that we would have been close to a sellout had it not been for the storm. But certainly a classy move by Mike Alford and his staff to offer those free tickets to people that had been displaced. And, what you wouldn't expect anything different from Florida State.
Yeah, without a doubt. And so now we move on and we turn the page because the NC State Wolfpack are a very good football team led by Dave Doran. And the Noles have to go to a place in which it's a difficult place to play, Carter Finley Stadium. You both played there, one of the more underrated venues, I think, not just in the ACC, but in the country. They've got a passionate fan base up in Raleigh, North Carolina, and Florida State's going to have their hands full. Pat, we'll start with you, and then again go around the horn with Mark and Kez. When you look at NC State, what do you see on tape, and then what kind of opportunity does Florida State have this Saturday night?
Well, I think the first thing you see with an NC State is a physical football team, and it's going to be the best defense that Florida State has faced this year. They are ranked in the top 30 in scoring defense, rushing defense, passing defense, total defense. Have not been great at getting to the passer, 101st in the nation in sacks. But listen, it's strength against strength. Florida State likes to make big plays in the offense. NC State has been reluctant to give them up. 14th in the nation in big plays over 20 yards and 16th in the nation in big plays giving up over 30 yards. So they don't give up many of them. NC State's not quite as been prolific on offense as we thought. Devin Leary certainly can have a good game. He's one of the better quarterbacks in the ACC. But listen, they've been rather pedestrian numbers-wise, although we did see that they had some sustained drives against a good Clemson defense. So listen, a mighty challenge for Florida State. But again, as we've seen every week, Ariya, there's not really a transitive property in college football. We see strange things happen every week. NC State is favored by 5. It is a crazy place to play. The fans are passionate about NC State football. They are right on top of you, and they're not very nice when you're there. But it'll be a hostile environment for Florida State. But listen, Florida State will have to correct some of the issues they had against Wake Forest, but certainly not an unwinnable game by any stretch of the imagination if Florida State can play the way they did defensively in the second half against Wake Forest, and then, of course, find that big play offense with some balance in the running game.
Mark?
Yeah, so this is probably the team in the conference that I dislike the most, okay? Dave Doran, to me, is the anti-Bobby Bowden, all right? In the sense that as classy and as what a good sport Coach Bowden was, they are a master of the dark arts. You know what I mean? Getting up off the pile, pushing you down, hitting you just a little bit late, kind of just talking smack and just little things in between the whistle that just kind of get at you a little. They needle you, and so nothing would make me happier than to beat them there. Now, it is a tough place to play. We have not traditionally done real well there. It's always tough. And so, my message to the team would be this: get ready to get in a fist fight, right? Get ready to get in a fist fight. Don't take no crap from anybody, because this game is going to be exactly that. They're going to come after us, all right? They got their pride hurt a little bit last night. They got it taken to them a little bit, and they want to take it out on somebody. I guarantee you, they're not going to lay down, right? And so we're going to have to take it. we're going to have to get in a figurative fist fight. I don't mean literally getting fights. What I mean is we better, if we show up like we did the first half of Wake, it'll be out of control really quick, right? I think Devin Leary, I watched him last night. He kind of reminded me a little bit of Danny McManus, right? He's got a rifle arm. He's got a real good arm. He's pretty tough, you know. And that defense, that 3-5-3, there's guys coming from everywhere, and we better be on the details, and we better get ready to get on somebody and go to the whistle and get them on the ground and push and hit and do the things we need to do. Is I'm convicted. I'm convinced if we come out any less than that, it's going to be a long night.
Yeah.
I think this game right here could be a game made for us to pull ourselves out of this this little 1 week deal here. I think you get humbled a little bit to Wake Forest, and they let you know, hey, maybe we're close, but we're not there yet. But then you play a team where they're not offensively explosive, where they where you have an opportunity to be able to get the ball and get some opportunities on offense, and you get a chance to be able to master the clock a little bit and to put your offense out there and be able to have some success. This could be a game that boosts it, that can propel you to the rest of the season. I'm just painting the vision of what could possibly happen this year here. You come to this game right here, you have a great game. The defense plays well against the offense that may not be as explosive as some of the offense like Wake Forest is concerned. And then you have a redeeming game. You get some of those guys back healthy on offense. You get a chance to be able to go and show some things that you've been doing before that have been successful, and you get a chance to win a game that propels you to the next week in Clemson, which prepares you to the rest of the season. That's what this game could be, because it's definitely a winnable game. Okay, as you look at their stats, you look at what they've been doing in the past right there. It's not been overpowering, right? You don't sit there and you just worry about history. You worry about a strong defense, and you worry about history because we haven't had success. You can overcome history with a change in your mind thought process. And so I think that could happen this week if we take this loss and use it to grow us. If we take this Wake Forest loss and use it to grow us, I think that's what possibly happen. Because they do have a good team. They have confidence. They have a coach that has an attitude. They have some recent history. They don't have long history, but they have some recent history where they've had success over FSU. But have they been punched in the mouth by FSU yet? Have they been, have they had the challenge of having to come from behind against the FSU team? And so that can happen this week. So I really look at it with the glass half full opportunity outlook, and I think there's some great opportunity for us to come out there and dominate a really good ranked team and put ourselves back in the position, having learned this lesson from Wake Forest, into a national spotlight.
Yeah, Pat, when you look at this NC State team, and you've done some breakdown of them already, they do have one of the best defenses in the country. We saw some numbers on our screen earlier showing you the breakdowns between the two defenses. What stands out most about NC State and that defensive side of the ball, and what are some ways, at least when you initially think about it, that Florida State can maybe have some success?
Well, listen, I think they got probably the best linebacking core in the ACC, if not all of college football. They're really, really good. Got three guys that are all ACC caliber players. Listen, I think you got to find balance in the offense. I think you got to keep them off. I think you got to keep the defense off balance by being balanced, right? I think FSU's got to get back. You'll hear me say this time and time again, and I bet Mark's going to back me up on it. You've got to be dedicated to the run. You've got to be physical with NC State because they're going to be physical with you. We know Florida State's going to find some explosive plays. They're too good right now on the outside with Johnny Wilson, Micah Pittman, the rest of the kids out there. And, listen, you got one of the best players in the nation, often as far as dynamic playmaker. If Jordan can run the ball, you run him a little bit more. But certainly it's going to be a challenge against NC State's defense.
All right, yeah, guys, we're going to wrap up the show here in a couple more minutes. Any final thoughts before Mark and Kez, we let you go? Pat, any final questions or thoughts for the guys before we say goodnight for the evening?
Yeah, I'd just probably repeat the same question you already had for me to you guys. Mark, how do you, based on what you guys saw last night, what do you think Florida State needs to do to be successful against NC State?
Well, we're going to have to find matchups on offense that favor us. And I hadn't studied them enough yet to have that granular knowledge about that. But there's going to be matchups there somewhere, and we're going to have to block them. They're going to, like I said, they got that 3-5-3. That's that old Joe Lee Dunn defense, right? Where they can line up in a number of different ways and shade fronts and bring linebackers from all different angles. And in the past, we haven't done great with that. So we need to be really coached up on the details. If we want to have success running the ball, we need to be aware. If we want to protect our passer, protect our quarterback, we need to be aware. Defensively, it's the same thing. You got a quarterback there that's got a good arm. I didn't see a great receiving core. I guess they really like that one guy. I forget his name, but we got to make Leary uncomfortable. We got to be in his face, just like Clemson did. Clemson rendered him ineffective by virtue of their pass rush. They harassed him all night. We got to do the same thing.
Yeah, I would say the same thing. I'll say, what, there's a couple things we got to improve upon. Obviously, pass rush is one, right? You can't play football and let quarterbacks have all day to throw the ball to. I think that's one of the big things too. And I think also just defensively, secondary too. You got to make the plays that they'll give it to you. They're going to try to run the ball on us, right? That's what they're going to try to do. They're not going to. They hadn't been successful as far as throwing the ball. I don't think they trust their passing game that much, but they hadn't had a lot of opportunity to success running the ball either. And so I think for us, it's pass rush. It's getting the third down and then getting off the field. Our third down conversion rate on both sides of the ball has to improve, okay? And so I think this week, man, working a whole lot of third down conversion, a couple different concepts. Become comfortable with what you're going to call them third down, because obviously that's what people are going to try to get us into. They don't want us to be in first down, okay? That's our strength, right? So we're going to have to learn how to play with our left hand a little bit and become better with our left hand. And that's third downs. That's on offense and defense, okay? And it might be good that both of us, that those are the areas that we need to work on, because we can work on that together.
Yeah.
We can go good on good, third down.
And to make kicks.
Make kicks. There you go. We need
guys. We let off Ryan Fitzgerald for the evening. We did a good job. We made about an hour. We didn't mention the kicking. We didn't mention the kicking woes. I think they mention it for themselves when we go out there. Oh my goodness,
might be time for somebody else.
That's an hour long convo if we keep going on our kicking woes. So, guys, one final thought before we say goodnight to you two. Do you guys have any favorite memories from Raleigh playing NC State, or any stories that you can remember of your playing days against the Wolfpack?
I got one. NC State was one of the last games that I didn't catch a ball in. I remember that game, and I remember that's when I made the decision for me personally to take ownership of my development as a football player. And before that point, I think I was just trying to, just being on the team, have to be a starter, have to be on the field. But after that point and making that decision, okay, I'm going to be a real ball player and taking my development upon myself. So that's my memory of NC State. Is I remember me making the decision, I'm going to make sure I'm a good football player after that game.
Any dark arts, Mark?
I never played there, but I was on the staff when we played there in '92, our first year in the league. Now that might be the game you're referring to, because I remember Charlie threw 4 picks that game, right?
Yeah, something like that.
He threw 4 picks that game, and up to that point, he had, I think that was number like 9, 10, 11, and 12 for the year. It was like our 4th game. He was throwing a lot of picks, and I'll never forget sitting in the coaches meeting after that game, and Coach Bowden looking at Mark Rick, Brad Scott, Billy Sexton, John Eason, me, Clint Ledbetter, Jimmy Higgins, and going, man, why is Charlie throwing all these interceptions? And then he could, is it my fault? I ain't coaching them. Is it Charlie's fault? This isn't my offense. This is y'all's offense. I tell you what, if you could hear a pin drop and buttholes were puckered, buddy. And he's y'all get it right, or else we're going back to running 44 and 344 wide trail.
Exactly.
and you know what? That's when the shotgun was. That's when the fast break was born.
Yeah.
Right after that, right, Kez?
Yeah, absolutely. You know what? And that's the thing too, is pressure. Sometimes those type of situations, they constitute you, right? I think I said constitute a lot of times tonight, but they make you better. They get you to realize what you are good at and make you make decisions. Okay, and that's where I hope we are as a football team, is get to a point where we get some adversity enough to say, enough. enough of this messing around. Let's do this thing.
But you know what, Kez? As bad as we were that day on offense, we still won the game.
We still win the game
because our defense bailed us out.
Yeah.
Hey, winning ugly, still a win.
Still a win.
Yep.
Fellas, appreciate you guys. You're both awesome. Welcome back anytime, Mark. We can't wait for Osceola tailgate later this week. Kez, you're a legend. You're the man. Again, come back anytime. Please do. And
all right, guys.
two of the
Appreciate
former
Go
greats.
Noles.
Absolutely. All right, Pat, a couple more minutes from us, maybe about 90 seconds before we wrap this thing and say goodnight. Always great to hear from those two, and that's a lot of knowledge.
Two of my favorites.
Two of your boys right there. And, Pat, they talk about NC State and the opportunity. Kez talked about the opportunity. 8 p.m. Saturday night, ACC Network from Carter Finley. You're going to be there.
Yep.
And what are your I guess your final thoughts on this show from where Florida State is right now and the work that they have to do this week to get ready for the Wolfpack?
Well, listen, they got to shore up some things on the offensive line and the defensive line. Listen, Jordan was under pressure all night. He had a good day statistically, but he, really was being hit a lot. They got to get that taken care of. Maybe he'll be a little bit healthier and they can do some more boot play action type stuff. And then, of course, as Mark and Kez said, that you got to be prepared to stop the run. Dave Doran is going to have a physical football team. They are a little chippy at times, but certainly, Ariya, I think what we've seen from Mike's teams since he has got here, and it just continues to prove itself week in and week out. As again, we talk about this game, as bad as it was in that first half, this team willed itself in when it was not playing good football back into this game and was a penalty away from having first and goal to tie it up. So I think we're going to see this team respond. I think we'll have, give a tremendous effort against NC State. NC State's going to give them a tremendous challenge, but I think what we'll see is this team will respond to adversity. It's what we've seen from it so far every game this year. And I expect to see them respond well with a good performance at NC State and hopefully a winning performance at NC State.
You cooking up anything fun this week on the Osceola?
Oh, we'll have a couple. We'll have the tailgate going. We'll possibly have a reeling them in with Charles Fishbein, which is our recruiting segment. And of course, what I'm looking forward to is who y'all are going to have on first and Noles with Roberto and Kurt. What y'all got anything special for us?
We might have a former Buffalo Bill running back, former Seminole running back. You guys have to dig deep, but I think you might have an idea of who we're talking about here. I got a brother who also played linebacker for the Steelers.
Okay.
If we can line that thing up for us. But, guys, a lot going on Osceola this week. And, of course, we'll have more answers for you after we meet with Mike Norvell at his press conference tomorrow, as well as Adam Fuller and Coach JP and Alex Atkins. So a lot more coming this week. It's 4-1. It's not the end of the world.
No.
5 games in Florida State's, I think today the polls came out and they were 28th, if you play it that way. And so the Noles have another opportunity to crack back into the top 25.
Yeah,
tough place to play, but a lot of football.
A lot of football to play, a chance to enhance the strength of your record with a win. And really, if they go into NC State, they'll find themselves, and when they get to NC State, they'll find themselves right back in the top 25. Not that that's what it's all about. It's about getting back on the win column. And listen, this is why we love football season. These games, right? You talked about it earlier. We've seen 2 games where we knew they were going to win. We like the games where there's a little bit of mystery and who's going to win, how we're going to play. And I'm all right. Listen, like you said, it's time to put Wake Forest behind us. The team they're on the practice field right now, getting ready for NC State. And I'm ready for NC State.
I think we're all ready for NC State. Good stuff from you here today on Seminole Sidelines. We'll have a recording here for you on YouTube that you can rewatch if you'd like, and then on Apple Pod, Spotify, and all your favorite listening streaming devices there. So I want to thank Mark Salva again, Kez McCorvey. I want to thank Silver Media, our great producer, Margaret. That's Pat Burnham. I'm Ariya Massoudi. You've been watching Seminole Sidelines, and we will talk to you soon.